Well, good morning. There's a chill in the air, and the weather is absolutely lovely to be snuggled up in bed and enjoying the white noise of the rain. But if you're stuck in traffic this morning, I sympathize with you. I faced that, but it's just part of everyday life, I suppose. Just with one drop of rain on the road, somehow everything slows down, and I suppose that's the correct thing. Don't want to be driving too quickly on these slippery roads. But thank you very much for joining us here on Talking Point this morning. I'm Keaton Shah, and it is a good day indeed to have a good day and a great conversation. And in doing so, I'm joined by my co-host and colleague alongside me, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And yes, the weather outside is to my liking, but that comes with the caveat that with the extension of the yellow alert, it might get worse and worse in this country. You know, we still have to question really and truly how prepared are we. Quite a lot of news within the last 24 hours. We won't be able to get into all of it just yet because there's still stuff that we need to get to with our Wednesday contributor. But just to acknowledge, at least in one instance, I find it very curious, the Duke's decision of strategy with regards to his position in the THA. I find it very questionable. But you know what? If that's what it takes to get him divested from what would otherwise be a viable political entity, in my opinion, I'm all for it. I'm all you do you, just you do you in a corner. But that is a conversation to have at a later date, to have some more pressing concerns and to take full advantage of the expertise and experience of our Wednesday contributor. Of course, I'm speaking of Mrs. Karen Shishera, who is in a happy mood, I think, this morning for reasons we'll get into later. But Karen, good morning.
Good morning to you, Sean. Good morning to you, Keaton, again. And of course, your viewers and listeners. It's always a good day for me to be here with you on Wednesdays. And Keaton, I do appreciate your upbeat, both you and Sean. But Keaton says it's rainy, but it's good, and that's what people really want to hear. They want to. They know what the reality of their lives are, whatever it may be. I'm not in a position to say, but all of us have challenges. So it's nice to be greeted with a positive note from both of you.
I think
the irony, of course, is not like we have a lot of good news in the national discourse.
No, and to a certain extent, Karen is right, because we don't know personally what's going on with you, with your family, with most people, and sometimes the best way to just greet you is with a dose of positivity, that 1 ounce of positivity, which
yes,
hopefully you can hold on to, and hopefully your day is a little better.
I guess to put it a different way, even if things are going bad throughout the country, trying to keep positive, there's nothing to gain by being negative. We know what it is.
Well, nothing to gain by being negative, but I suppose some people just can't help
and
that.
People like yourself, Keaton and Sean, they show Good Morning America. Sometimes I think it's so light and frivolous, but they have their followers. And a lot of those shows on American television, I can think others, and they always try to put a positive light because they know people are dealing with their own issues and they want their break. And yes, we are on serious issues here, but at the same point in time, we hopefully will try to give a sense of hope. And that's what I think you both do, bringing the tough news, the real news to the people, but not in a way that is, in my view, in a combative, harsh, and lacking in objectivity. So that's what I think makes you both stand out.
Well, thank you, Karen. And sometimes we do bring a certain level of combativeness simply because we ourselves are frustrated at times. I often say that opening a newspaper in Trinidad has become the most depressing thing that you can do. And speaking about being combative, once more, the state's legal arguments have not worked out in their favor, the case being that of Jayawala Rambaran and his $7.5 million award for wrongful dismissal. But let's put that aside for a moment, because the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago has broken its silence last week, actually, as it relates to this indemnity agreement regarding Vincent Nelson, the former Attorney General, Anand Ram Logan, a former government senator, and Attorney at Law, Gerald Ramdeen, and the most important person, of course, the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi. Now, there's so many other government ministers involved in this, and it's a case that is very interesting and intriguing. The Law Association responded to, and we're going to get into that. But first, Karen, I must ask you for clarification so that our viewers do understand. There seems to be a mix-up between what a plea agreement is and what an indemnity agreement is. And I'm wondering if you can just explain the difference between those two.
Okay, as simply as I can, when we look at an indemnity agreement, you're dealing with the civil branch of the law, and that is the Attorney General's province. So that one can enter in, and we're all familiar, may not all be aware that we have indemnity agreements ourselves. Because with your car insurance, if you get in an accident, the reason you pay those premiums is that if any damage is done to the other vehicle, that the company is going to keep you harmless from any claims against you as a result of the accident, because there's risk involved in driving. We see it in the company's ordinance. The directors now, many years ago actually, they actually put into the legislation that directors could be personally liable for loss. Now, when a director is, especially any company, but they're the ones in the front, and many times they're carrying out policies, if let's just say the government policy. So they will want to have some coverage that in the event that they are sued as directors for malfeasance, so for, whatever the reasons that will be given in breach of their directorial obligations of trust and fidelity, that they want protection also because they are putting themselves at risk. So in the case of so that's the broad understanding. It keep you harmless from, and I want to protect the party from liability created by a transaction. So it protects them and it indemnifies them. Of course, there are limitations to how far an indemnity can go. You can't indemnify someone against something that is contrary to the law. So, I mean, if it simply will be unenforceable. It limits, usually you find that indemnity from my reading is that, and understandably so, you don't want to leave yourself open to an unending liability, and I'm talking about financial liability, to what you call the indemnity, and you are the indemnitor, and the AG is the indemnitor, and indemnity, in our case, I suppose we are speaking about, is Vincent Nelson. So you do not want to leave yourself wide open to an endless stream of liabilities, because at the end of the day, where does it end? And then you're talking about putting the state in that position. So with the indemnity provision, what I will say, it can be entered into. It is a legal document. It's a contract like other contracts. The terms and conditions of that indemnity agreement are subject to certain limitations in terms of, as I said, for example, you can't enter into an indemnity agreement that is to break the law or involve protecting you against a criminal wrongdoing. But in closing on the indemnity agreement, and I'm speaking specifically about the one that we are all interested in, it seems that the indemnity agreement terminology may have been used as an all-encompassing term for the agreement that the Attorney General came to with Vincent Nelson on the condition that he would, and that was the condition, and he gave a notarized statement to that effect, to give critical evidence against the former Attorney General and Senator Ramdeen regarding misbehavior in public office, collusion, and effectively agreeing that when he gets his briefs, that part of it would be passed through Senator Ramdeen to the Attorney General. So in order to get him, because he would also be implicating himself, because he is part of that. So if you want someone to cooperate with you because in the interest of the natural of justice, because there's always a cost benefit involved, then you have to decide what is the best evidence you can get. And I think the best evidence one could have gotten was that from Vincent Nelson. So to close on that part, there may be things in that so-called indemnity agreement that I'm not sure can be enforceable, including giving him a pardon, although the pardon really is not from the the president is strictly speaking is an executive. It's not a judicial function. It's an executive function. And it is done by the advisory committee, made up of the DPP, made up of public officers. I think the president can select 4, but she acts on the advice of the minister. So it is an executive function and not a judicial function, just to be clear about that. But there are things there that perhaps one will say, how could you make an indemnity agreement that says, I will keep you harmless against any claim losses whatsoever, and without putting at least one, a date, and secondly, an amount. Didn't seem to do that. So there are questions to be asked about that. Turning to the plea agreement, so I hope I made it clear. So that's something that the Attorney General can do, and he can give that indemnity in order, if he thinks the bigger justice will be done by getting the cooperation of someone such as Vincent Nelson, and who himself was liable and therefore civilly liable, because his province is civil liability for compensation for monies received that were not properly received under the civil branch of the law. Then you come to the plea agreement. Now that is governed by, as with everything in criminal law, criminal law is not a function of common law, case law, and all of that. Criminal law is a function of statute. So yes, you might have to get interpretation of the statute provision, but it is not law unless it is in the statute. So there is legislation which deals with that Act in 2017, so the Criminal Procedure Plea Agreement Act. So there is an act that provides for that. It has limitations into entering into the plea agreement. You can't coerce, you can't misrepresent, and you cannot promise what you cannot promise. But the purpose of it is, and I will read it out actually from the legislation, so I hope I get it right. It's an agreement in the interest of justice between the prosecutor. And a prosecutor, just to make clear, is the DPP or anyone assigned in writing by the DPP to prosecute a matter. So the prosecutor is a member of the DPP, but he has to have that written authority. So an agreement in the interest of justice between the prosecutor and the accused to plead guilty to an offense which is disclosed on the facts and to fulfill the obligations specified therein. So that is part of our law, and what it allows the DPP to do, and it says so in the legislation, which it must, because that's where he gets his power from an act. It allows the DPP, through prosecutor authorized, to withdraw or discontinue an original charge against the accused, reduce the charge to a lesser offense, undertake to recommend a summary trial instead of an indictment, which is far more serious, recommend to the court that a particular sentence or sentencing range is appropriate, and to recommend to the court that the plea agreement be sealed. So all those things are provided for in the legislation. It's not something that the DPP has gone outside his authority. It comes strictly within the confines of the legislation. So what did he do? My understanding, which is why this whole thing is clouded in so much, and I think deliberately so.
Karen,
because it's clear. Yes.
If I may just,
you need me to.
I do apologize. What happened? Hold on that particular point. We have to take a quick break here on the program.
Okay.
But when we return, let's continue this conversation. When we return here to Talking Points, Karen Yeshishara is with Sean Michael Small and myself this morning. We're getting a better understanding of the indemnity agreement and what's taking place now with the Law Association's response to the situation. We'll be right back after this.
To make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love. We delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Today we're talking about cosmetic medicine, and we're on set at Relax Med Aesthetics.
We are like famous all over the world for this glow. You could in an airport, you could spot a Caribbean over there. Oh my God, she's from Trinidad.
She's definitely from Trinidad.
Yeah. So I felt like that was something that we needed to feel like we belonged, and we needed to feel empowered that our skin color was really important.
Step we've been waiting for is the chemical peel, right? So I'm gonna start applying.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Carrying us to share is with Sean Michael Small and myself this morning as we continue to analyze the ongoing situation evolving around the former Attorney General, two former Attorney Generals, and King's Counsel Vincent Nelson. Karen, before we had to take that break, I apologize for having to interrupt you, but you were actually, there were two other points that you wanted to make. You can continue now.
Well, just to confirm and clarify for sure that when the DPP acted, he acted under the powers he had under the legislation. Mm-hmm. And, you're getting different stories, but it appears that he did not himself have a copy of the notarized statement that he gave to the Attorney General, because he was not apparently relying on it, because he had enough information, however he had gotten it, from the police, or maybe, I don't know, the AG, however he got it. But he had enough that he could have charged Vincent Nelson with very serious crimes. Mm-hmm. But who they really wanted to, more than anything else, because of, the Attorney General and a Senator, and the amount that was involved, that's what they do all the time. I'm doing it in America all the time, that we watch shows and they say, okay, we'll take the death penalty off the table if you will cooperate with us. And you're cooperating with someone who is an accused, a person who you have a little regard for. So in his case, he wanted to make sure that, or as much as he could, that Vincent Nelson would give evidence against Anand Ramlugan and Ramdeen in the criminal prosecution, not civil, in the criminal prosecution. And that is where he entered into the plea agreement, which he was authorized to do. And one has to remember, too, that when in 2019, when whatever documents were sent to him, which made him feel comfortable that he could pursue the matter of our plea agreement, he immediately charged Vincent Nelson. He also and soon after he charged both Attorney General former Ramlugan and Ramdeen. So he exercised his powers on the basis that Vincent Nelson, in accordance with the plea agreement, which is covered by the criminal legislation and is criminal lawyer dealing and criminal prosecution, which deals with conviction, which deals with incarceration, and all that goes with it, that he felt that he had done his part. When it came to the indemnity agreement, as far as I understand, as far as he has said, he had no part in that. That was something the Attorney General took upon himself. And to be very frank with you, I think there's a lot of infighting going on there, because the very fact that it is reported that his own Attorney General in the Attorney General Department at the time, Stuart Young, was the one that went to the National Criminal Agency of the UK and provided them with a notarized statement, when I'm not quite sure that he needed to do that. And then I get the impression he didn't let the Attorney General know either. And the fact of what was going on with Vincent Nelson was not a secret. It was in the papers all the time. I mean, they have their embassy here, and one of their duties is to look at national security, and Vincent Nelson is a British citizen. So I couldn't quite understand. And usually you do that when, and I don't know if that was the case, under the mutual assistance legislation, when they make a request or when you make a request. So it seems to me the whole thing is a lot of infighting going on. In my respectful opinion, the Prime Minister, even though if he goes for 3 years, that will be the end. And I think people are trying to position themselves for being the Prime Minister. And unfortunately, it's coming across as though there's a lot of infighting. And I think that the Attorney General, when he was, that is Haris Al-Rawi, felt that what he did, he was bringing home the golden goose, getting one of them, and he got, in my view, so committed to it in a way that he may have lost some of his necessary objectivity. So when we use the word, to complete that point, when we use the word indemnity agreement, it may be an all-encompassing provision name for what agreement he entered into, but I'm not sure that all of the provisions fall under an indemnity, and certainly leaving it so open-ended, allowing him to keep the monies that he had accumulated while Anand Ramlugan was Attorney General, so he did not have to return any of those monies. The fact that also too that I think there was another agreement they came to. So I think a lot of people were not happy, but I think the Prime Minister knew these Attorney General in the Attorney General Department, for some reason, neglected to inform the Attorney General, which is a rather strange development. So coming now to the last point is this. The Law Association, sometimes people know much more than they are able to say. They don't want to be sued for defamation and information. Just the fact that they seal the proceedings for breach of the indemnity provision, which Vincent Nelson knew that when he did that, he might be doing damage himself, but he felt he'd be doing more damage to the politicians. And so he made a disconsidered decision from his point of view. And I think that the members of the Law Association perhaps may know more than they're able to say, and they have to be very careful, because this whole thing is not unfolding in a very clear, lucid way where people are blaming. I mean, you have a Attorney General blaming his lawyers. Lawyers take instructions from their clients, and guess who your client was? The Attorney General. I mean that alone, there was so much that's not right. So I think it's unfortunate that they were forced to say something. I think, however, that part of the reason maybe I'm giving them too much credit, is that they need to tread carefully, because this thing seems to be clouded in so much mystery and in fighting. In fighting, it looks as though it isn't. That's what's going on.
I think Karen's point there, it's reasonable. Again, we're assuming because based on what we know, so we don't have all the facts. But again, if you don't want us to speculate, then be more transparent. With this situation, I would also like to point out, because we ourselves criticized the Law Association for taking too long. And then, after the Law Association's statement, I believe last week Friday, the opposition leader criticized the Law Association on Saturday. So now, while, I can't necessarily knock the opposition for doing that, because like I said, we did it. The manner that they did it distracts, once again, from the matter at hand. The matter at hand is this collapse of the corruption case. And now, for whatever reason, we saw it with regards to the Police Service Commission, where it ended with the opposition fighting with the independent senators. What that had to do with the matter at hand then, I don't know why that was thought important. Now, the manner of which the opposition is going after the Law Association, I get it. Feel free to criticize them. But the amount of vitriol that the opposition leader used, to me it seems as though she's more concerned about taking the Law Association to task and having an axe to grind against them than actually trying to steer the discussion to the best way towards the truth in this situation.
And you're not unfair in your statements, but precisely what you are doing is precisely what the opposition leader would like, which is, even if it is bad public relations, you are still giving her publicity and still giving her, and still actually having to examine.
But the flip side, Keaton, is, do we accept that level of criticism and that type of discussion and then potentially, because it's not as though it actually happened yet, but potentially hijacking it, and all of a sudden the opposition, who is supposed to be the people at the front of the line to hold the government to account, are basically spending their time debating on whose job is not being done.
But that's precisely what we're doing right now.
Can I just interject, please? Can I just interject? It is her Attorney General. It is her senator. Does she want the public to focus on what Anand Ram Logan allegedly did? Does she want the public to focus on what Senator Ramdeen allegedly did? Did she want to have this spotlight? That is her role. So she wants to deflect, and in deflection, she's putting it right at the foot of the Law Association. She's a politician. You're doing as though she is a commentator. She is a politician, and she's the head of the opposition, and she has a right. She has a right, as the current government does, as our politicians will do, is to deflect from the wrongdoings of her own ministers and put some of that blame on the Law Association. And that is what she is doing, and that she's perfectly right to do. And the very fact that you and I are having this discussion, it has worked.
But Karen, I just want to point out the lack of principles, if that is the track that she is on. Because at the end of the day...
How was that unprincipled?
Because she claims to be concerned about the matter at hand when she's not. She's deflecting about something else. So what do you expect her to do? Remember, guys.
Okay, I think we need to leave it alone.
Our job is not just to criticize the government. Our job is to criticize everybody. Her job is to criticize the government.
Our job is not to criticize. Our job is to analyze and break down what has happened.
Okay, but the point is everybody.
And if there is any level of constructive criticism that we can give, sure, fair enough. Now, in relation to the opposition leader, precisely what you just said, unfortunately, is what you also did, which is creating a distraction. Because whilst, hold on, as I said, your comments are not unfair. But the reason why I will make the argument that they're not justified in the sense that if we focus on the Law Association, because quite frankly, I agree with what you're saying, the opposition leader, many a times, is not very much direct, nor is she very clear in her messaging. At one moment, you're criticizing the Law Association for a lack of response. When they do respond, then you're criticizing them for their response. But putting her aside, my stance on the Law Association is, I'm actually pleased that they were willing to meet, the executive were willing to meet on the matter, And I was actually pleased that they issued a statement, and the questions of which they're asking of the current Attorney General to answer, I'm satisfied. Where I am displeased is the fact that it took so long for the Law Association Executive Council to meet. The fact that they...
Can I just say one thing, though?
Sure, Karen,
if you don't mind,
of course, but very quickly.
Yes, very quickly. Do you realize we are not talking about Anna and Ramlogan? Do you realize we're not talking about the senator? Do you realize we're not talking about them? Do you realize who we're talking about is what we consider to be the mismanagement by the current government? Isn't that what we are talking about? That is not what should have happened. What should have been happening instead is that we should have been talking about Anand Ramlogan, Vincent Nelson, and all the terrible things they did. But they have been succeeded, and it has succeeded to put the spotlight on the government.
Right,
as almost if the government is wrong.
No, but
if that is a tactic of the opposition, then the government has themselves to blame.
No, but I am not taking the government for task due to anything the opposition said on this matter. The government shot themselves in the foot, in my opinion, on this matter. And one of the things, the fallout or the consequences of it is just exactly what you said there, right? For better or worse, this case is now up in the air. We don't even know if we're going to see a resolution to this. So even if you think that they're innocent, they're not going to get that. More importantly, we, the people, deserve this case to be seen through so that we could understand, are they guilty? And if they're guilty, they will pay the price for whatever it is they did. That said, we have to call out these things, like the government fumbling this case, like the opposition fumbling their duties with regards to what the focus should be on. Because if we let it go, well, then they'll just continue to do that. And the conversation will definitely go way far away from the actual matter at hand.
Okay, but let us all agree that in instances like this, that should be in the periphery of the conversation, not necessarily central.
It happened now, so we comment on it now and we move on.
Because for the last 6 minutes, we've been focusing a lot more on the opposition and our response.
Right, but Keaton, for the most part on this topic, the focus has been on the government and how the case has been handled. The opposition leader said a response. I want to point out to people why it's a bad response, why it's a bad direction for the response, and to basically ignore that response.
And Karen, you know what, Karen, I accept that constructive criticism. And I'm not speaking solely for Talking Point, but generally within the media. Whilst there has been a lot of focus on what has happened with respect to the actual indemnity agreements and the current government administration, there has not been enough focus as well on the situation surrounding Jara Ramdeen and Anand Ramlogan. So that is one point. I accept that as constructive criticism. I think the media and Talking Point falls as a part of the media. Yes, I think we should have done better in relation to that. But I also believe that this morning, where we had this discussion about the indemnity agreement versus a plea agreement, and the authorities of the DPP versus the authorities of the Attorney General, I also think that was critical and that was crucial to understand this case. Precisely what the opposition leader was hoping for and wanting, regardless of her comments, they've worked, because the media has now laid focus solely on the government. So yes, it has worked in favor of the opposition. Quite frankly, I think all of us have fallen for it.
You're giving her too much credit.
You're
giving her way too much credit.
I am not giving her credit.
You're probably not reading the same papers we're reading then.
I'm not giving her credit.
Criticisms on the government is due to their actions first and foremost. Half the time the opposition leader couldn't rally any sort of national discourse against the government, even if she tried. She misses as much as she hits.
But Sean, step back a little bit from it. Step back a little bit. The reality is, when you read the media, you hardly hear anything about Anand and Ramdeen. What you hear about is what Faris did,
but
what Stuart Young did, and what Vincent Nelson did, and what the DPP did. And that is a story that has been carried. So but if that was the intention, to distract the media from what they did, they have succeeded, whether you like it or not.
The opposition did not proactively say anything to get that ball rolling. It was basically coming out of the DPP saying he's discontinuing the case. That's what started this whole scenario. The other thing is this, with regards to the case itself, can we speak about the case? To some extent, I thought that the national media was staying away from talking about the case because potentially government said that they are going to seek to continue it and usually talking about the matters that are before the courts.
You can comment on the case up to what has happened.
I mean, at the end of the day, the story of the last 3 weeks was the case being discontinued. I get it. We should be reminded, or at least include in the discussion, just what the case was about, and that has not happened.
But I also think just as how, you know, and I think we've also had a constructive discussion in the last couple of minutes as well as to how we go about analyzing these things. You know, just as how you've indicated that before previously you've said we are equal opportunity critics.
Yes.
I'm also of the opinion that if we are to do our job in the best possible way, we should also be willing to face constructive criticism, but also be willing to look at ourselves sometimes and criticize ourselves and criticize each other constructively, not for malicious purposes at all, but certainly to try and better ourselves as presenters and what we do to the public.
I get that, but you know, Kamala deserves 6 minutes, and that's it. That's where it ends for me. I said my piece on it, and that's about the amount of importance that I gave it, or that I'm giving it.
Well, and that's where we're going to end this particular segment, ladies and gentlemen. So guess what? We're going to take a quick break here on the program. When we return, well, there's another legal case. This entire program is about the law this morning. We're educating you here on Talking Point. We'll be right back after this.
Secretary Girls IC School presents Wonderland! A bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punch board, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids. Kids, are you ready for face painting, sweet parang, DJ music, Santa workshop, kids corner, dunk tank, wheel of fortune, and so much more? Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, comes alive, 12 noon to 6 p.m.
Wonderland!
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website, www.fanzonett.com, for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa, debit, and credit cards. Visit our website, fanzonett.com, to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we're going to go from one legal matter to another. But just before we do that, we do, of course, have one of the prospects running for the leadership, the political leader position of the PNM. And Karen, you do have some concerns that you want to air out. You wanna tell the people. So just before we get into a little bit of good news for you.
Yes.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, I said that I wanted to make this statement. As you rightly said, we're not going to be talking about the internal, my putting my hat in the ring. What I wanted to say is that if I wanted to be convinced that this country needed change, and we are being surrounded by forces of criminality, not just in murder, but on every aspect, I myself experienced it recently. And I'm coming out publicly because, yes, people told me that I should be careful, and I knew what they meant by that. But, I guess maybe I should have taken it more seriously. The issue was that a few days ago, I made it very clear that if I get assistance funding for my campaign, that I certainly did not want to be beholden to anyone, and that I did not wish to have the support of persons that I considered would want the pound of flesh, which will take us right back to what we are complaining about, the state of our country. So, having said that, I did not disclose the person. They're not living here. I did not disclose the person. I didn't even know where they had a property in Trinidad. I didn't know myself. But when I was spoken to about the individual assisting, I was also made to realize that there were certain factions that were unhappy with my position. And as that was said to me, a call was made to the person and who said they were in the police station. And they found out, they knew, they were able to find out who a potential person was. I imagine is no longer going to. Potential person was. Someone or some bodies went into that home, strew around every single thing in the house, furniture, everything, papers, and stole not one thing. Not one thing was stolen. And I have to take that, one, as a warning to him that we know who you are, and we didn't come to steal anything, we came to warn you. And we also came to warn Karen Teixeira. Look what we did. So if it is that this government has an associate, because I certainly will not be part of anything like that. I mean, it would not even occur to me to indulge in that kind of criminal behavior. That if persons are so concerned and so worried that maybe the change will come and a change will be better, that they are prepared to do what they did, to the point that I don't even want to leave my home. I don't even want to see my grandchildren because I don't want to put them at risk, because that was a clear message to me and it was sent last week. And I was in shock. So that's all I want to say about that. You say you want change? Well, I just gave you an example of what you will get if you don't make a change, because clearly there are people who feel threatened, and you have to wonder if those people feel threatened. Look at how they express their fears. Look at how they express their fears, consistent with the criminality that we're seeing on the streets. So I have to say it, because I'm not going to be one of those persons that you're going to say, I wonder what happened to her. I wonder if she got in an accident. I wonder. I come out right here today to tell you all what happened to me. And that's the end of that.
It is the unfortunate difficulty with dealing with corruption is even those who, whether they intend to fight against the corruption or just keep their head down and stick to themselves, the corrupt individuals will not leave them alone, because they have to do whatever they can to undermine or corrupt everyone around them as a means to ensure that no one will snitch, no one will tell. If you are on the take, you're going to protect me just as much as I need you to.
But it's an attack against me for party leadership. Yes. So understand that. It's an attack against me as party leadership of the PNM. That's what it's about. So understand what it's saying, and we don't make it a euphemism. Understand it for what it is, because I do.
I think people need to understand too, it's not just about party corruption, but corruption at multiple levels that are probably looking at any small sign of change and saying, nah, you know what, we're not gonna support that. But well, let's leave it there, and hopefully that's as far as it will go, and we will see, because if it doesn't, that's very telling about the true depth of the problem in our country. Moving on, something ironically speaking, not necessarily so serious, but not necessarily so serious in the immediacy. You got some good news. I want to...
Very good news.
Right. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say it's celebratory given the nature of the case, but you got some good news with regards to your wrongful death suit, I believe, and basically the appeal that the defendant tried to file was quashed, and you got the award that you were conferred in the previous instance, that more or less was upheld. So, but there's still some important points, I think, that for us to talk about from the case. But first, I will let you have your say with regards to what this means to you.
Well, what it meant for me, as briefly as I can say it, is that it really meant that my husband, Russell Shearer, who was a very beloved person, you could speak to anyone. As a citizen, he was in Grissom Boys, he was a national player, he was a superb son. I couldn't touch him to be a good father. He never was disrespectful to his parents, and sometimes I wondered if I might have been so controlled. Such a good person to his siblings, a wonderful father to his two daughters, and at 53 years of age to be, to be deprived of his future and his life. Mm-hmm. I am his wife, yes, and I feel it as his wife, but I felt it more for him. And what motivated me the most in moving forward is that some people came to me, leave it now, forget about it now. Yes, leave it now, forget about it now, because in a year's time, I'm sure the doctors would have been unhappy. I didn't think they would be happy what happened, but in a year's time, they will continue with whatever their practices may have been. And Russell said, oh yeah, that was a sad case. No, that's why laws changed in the United States and the UK, because people stand up and sue, and by doing that, they force change in the medical system that benefits not only the doctors and gives them protection, but also the patients. So it's an all-win. So that was what motivated me. But it has been a very trying experience for me.
Well, I think that more or less segues into the important parts for us as a nation. One of the things, of course, is we're not necessarily, I don't think we have the perception of being a litigious society. We don't sue for everything. We don't sue because of a hot cup of coffee from McDonald's burnt us because we spilled it on ourselves. But yes, maybe to some extent that needs to change. But also in this matter, you had a hard time getting any local experts to testify on behalf of your case. And I do find that in the media, Keaton and I were trying to get people to speak on matters. We run into similar problems where, I don't know if it's because we're a small country, I don't know if that excuse should even be allowed, but people with knowledge to educate the public as to what's going on at times are reluctant to speak, and it makes it more difficult to hold those responsible for whatever accountable.
Well, I will just say this. I mean, in my case, during the pendency of my matter, I was actually Minister of Finance at one point in time. I'm an attorney at law. Many of the people were either my colleagues or students, and I am not on the poverty breadline. The reason I'm saying that is if I had all that trouble and all that, those years of anguish to the point of in the last 5 years, I said, well, what is to be, because it was clear that I had to defend. People don't realize that when they said that I won, once you win a case, the other side can appeal. And once they appeal, you have to defend. Because if you don't defend, they get judgment against you in default. So I was compelled to defend myself. And since they got top of the line lawyers at the end, let me just say QCs from England that had a reputation for being good in that field, I had the best I could have. Douglas Mendez, Simon de Labastide, Marcel Ferdinand, and I want to mention Kerwin Garcia, who was there at the beginning, who I knew him as Anthony Garcia's son, by the way, but he was valedictorian. I was kind of close with him, and at the beginning he was involved and never charged me a cent. So I just wanted to acknowledge his contribution. So every time they appealed, I had to defend. And every time I had to defend, I had to pay legal fees. And whilst my colleagues were understanding it's billable hours, they have to answer to their firms and so on, and to their own selves, the amount of time they have to spend doing research and so on. And so when it went to the Privy Council, it went another level, because now you had English solicitors, you had to pay in pounds, and you would drag, and they, since they were the ones appealing, understand that the judgment was given in 2013, which was dragged out, which is another story. But from 2013, I mean, to the point that when it reached the Privy Council, I had the lawyers in England write to the Privy Councillors saying that it appears that the appellants are not interested in pursuing this matter. And we are waiting how many years, and has gone up to the Privy Council, I think 2018 or thereabouts, when they lost the appeal, and yet I cannot get a date. So the intention was to frustrate me by the period of time passing, and maybe I would have died by that time, because some of their own witnesses had died, potential witnesses, or that I would drain me financially, that I would not be able to continue, because certainly I had to take into account that if I lost, that I would have to pay substantial legal costs. So they were successful in that way. When you ask me about lawyers, doctors not coming forward, yeah, it is understandable. It's a small society. One day it's me, the other day it's you. But what you don't know, and what I'm going to say, because I have the evidence, and I even went to mediation, prepared to settle for 1/3, not half of what, 1/3 of what I would be entitled to now. Let me just put it this way. And what I had was, I have brothers who are doctors, and I sent it to them for their independent assessment to say, should I go ahead? End of the day, she's deceased now, but I have her opinion, Dr. Waveney Charles, signed and dated by her, supporting me, and on the balance of probability. So when I was getting ready to have her speak with my team, and this was kept under covers, it was not disclosed, certainly I don't really buy any of my advocates. She said to me, I'll never forget the words. She said to me, she had a little lab that she did testing for blood and so on. And she said to me, Madam, I have to put food in my mouth. But what she did do was give me the name of other doctors. And what I had to do, and it will show, and this is how bad it was, that the doctors here, which I commend them very much, I do not know them personally, but they were of the highest caliber, because you can't just get any and anybody as expert witnesses. You have to have people who the court, because they are really there on the court's behalf, not on my behalf. They are helping the court in a specialist area. What I ended up being advised to do, and did do, was get joint statements. In the hematology, I got one from here and one from Jamaica. And in the anesthesiology, I had a joint one from here and one from Barbados, a professor. And I had to pay all four. And for me to have to do that, and to put me through that, it tells you what I was contending with. What I will say to anybody who has to fight this good fight that I had to fight, I was lucky, that I was grateful that the expert witnesses were highly regarded. And when you read the judgment, you know that is so, were willing to assist me and I was given the advice to do it jointly, so that if they were able to get to somebody, and I'm not saying they did, but if they were, they couldn't touch those in Barbados and Jamaica. And that's a sad reflection on the profession. The other thing that I would tell anybody...
Again, once more, I'm so sorry to be the bearer of bad news. We've run out of time for this particular segment.
You see, there's so much I could say about that.
I'll tell you what, let's continue it after WSN's News on the Hour. Folks, we'll be right back after this.
to your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 8 more succumbed to COVID-19. Adverse weather alert updated to end on Saturday. Landslide almost destroys St. Anne's home. And internationally, Indonesian woman's body found inside python. Now for the details. 8 more persons succumbed to COVID-19 within the last week. According to the Ministry of Health's dashboard, the death toll is now 4,249. Meanwhile, 189 new cases have been recorded, taking the active case count to 537. The rolling 7-day average is 27 for positive cases and 1 for deaths. There are currently 55 persons hospitalized with COVID-19. Trinidad and Tobago is under an adverse weather alert until Saturday. This alert was updated last evening by the TT Meteorological Service. A combination of features, including the ITCZ and a low-level trough, is expected to affect the region. Periods of rain and/or showers of varying intensities are expected, with a high chance of heavy showers and thunderstorms that can produce intense rainfall in excess of 50 millimeters. Gusty winds in excess of 55 kilometers per hour may be experienced, especially in the vicinity of heavy showers and thunderstorms. Street and flash flooding and localized ponding are also likely in heavy downpours. A landslide at a St. Anne's home left a family without a place to sleep last night. The landslide occurred following heavy rains in Port of Spain and environs yesterday afternoon.
Thankfully, no one was hurt. Myself and my mom was at home. We were able to get out just in time with a few of our valuables. Again, grateful for life. Of course, we see the situation. We hope for any assistance that we can get. Hopefully, we're not able to stay here now because the land is still moving. So we have to look for somewhere to stay.
In international news now, a woman in Indonesia's Jambi province was killed and swallowed whole by a python, according to local reports. Jara, a rubber tapper reportedly in her 50s, had made her way to work at a rubber plantation on Sunday morning. She was reported missing after failing to return that night, and search parties sent out to find her. A day later, villagers found a python with what appeared to be a large stomach. Locals later killed the snake and found her body inside. Well, that was News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and of course we'd like to thank Denise St. Clair for news on the hour. But of course, Karen, we have to continue with regards to the point that we unfortunately had to cut you just before, because you were speaking about your case, about the intimidation being sent against witnesses that you were trying to get, and the fact that your entire case more or less depended on having expert testimony to hold up the medical arguments for your lawsuit.
So, Sean, I know that this is the half an hour where we go to the public, but for 17 years I've had to stay quiet because the matter was sub judice, so I was unable to speak out. And I just want to say a few things that I hope that it help the public. One of the things that, and I checked with one of my brothers who's a doctor in the States, and he works almost with a hospital. But what I was wanting to say is this. Under the Private Hospital Act for Trinidad, you have to get a license from the Minister of Health. I don't know that there's any legal requirement that one must have a what you call liability insurance to operate a private hospital. And that is something of great concern. I just believe it like that there's nothing that I could see that required it. Most hospitals I know, private hospitals to do that, because if in a government hospital, the state will be responsible for any so-called negligence of any of its doctors. Private hospitals have a different arrangement, usually, and they are required, they should and would be required to have it, just as how you are required to have third-party insurance on a car, because a car is a weapon. I'm not sure that I looked at the Act, that there's no requirement as a licensing requirement from the Private Hospital Act from the Minister, and I think that should be enforced. A second thing I also wanted to bring to the attention of the public, when you are looking for a doctor to do any procedure, is always a question that you may not recover, and may not be anything to do with the negligence of the doctor. It's just whatever the factors are and whatever it is. But certainly you should be able to go to the board, the medical board, and be able to see, not that somebody could apply with a diploma so that they could be listed under diploma, or somebody could apply to be listed as a specialist. But they should have, as I understand they have in the United States, etc., that I should be able to go on the website and show those persons who qualify to the equivalent of board certified, those who qualify with a postgraduate diploma, and those who are GPs. Because it's my life I'm dealing with. And I should be able, it's not a pair of shoes I'm buying, I should be able to make an informed decision as to whom I feel is the person I want to best put my life in. As far as I'm aware, I looked at the medical board thing. They say a register of medical specialists is and this is in 2022. They say they're working on it. So that's another thing. The third thing I want to mention is that if you are in private practice as a doctor in the United States and in England, I know as a fact, you have to get an annual license fee. And one of the one of the prerequisites is that you must have insurance if you're a private doctor. I'm sure doctors here would want to do that, should do that, but I don't know that there's any legal requirement for them to do that, and that's something I feel very strongly should be looked at. And finally, I think they need to standardize the documents, basic documents that they use in the hospital, meaning that every document that they're using should have the name of the doctor, what he ordered, and it will go through a computer system and the exact time and date on which it was ordered and the signature of that doctor. Because as we will find out, and certainly as I find out, it's important to be able to trace the time when things happened. And when you do not have a standardized prescribed form for certain documents as part of the law, it does not allow, it will allow persons, you cannot say for sure when this procedure was done, when it was ordered, the time was ordered, and also it is in the system, so you can't alter it. Those are the kind of things that I could say, personally speaking, are things that the medical profession needs to look at, because there's too many people complaining and cannot sue simply because they do not have the means to do it.
Yes. And I have heard of instances of doctors and dentists who they practice privately, and let's just say the results for their patients are less than successful. But so we have that problem. I know that we have that problem. To what extent are we ready and willing to clean up? It seems as though we have so many.
I'm reaching out to the Minister of Health to pass the requisite legislation, amendment to the private hospital legislation to include at least liability insurance. I am reaching out to him for the licensing of doctors who practice privately, that the medical board require, or whoever is the proper body, that they cannot practice without having insurance. Because at the end of the day, when you sue, what happens is the doctor may be a man of straw, it may not be a man of great thing, but that's the same, it's the hospital. And you want to have that assurance that at the end of the day that you are going to get your just desserts.
Yeah.
And finally, just that what you may not know, and I'll tell anybody to do this, anyone who is involved in a matter like mine, evidence.
Yes.
And when my husband died, the day after, one of my brothers, who's a doctor in the States, told me to go down there and get my husband's records. And I was saying, no, I couldn't do it. I was too upset, I couldn't do it. He said, ever heard his statement, doctor in documents? Well, let me just say, to put it briefly, I said enough to them that they gave me the document before anything had an opportunity. Not that I'm saying they would have done it, but any opportunity for documents to disappear, for things to be altered. And that helped greatly in my case, because when you looked at timelines of the nurses' records, when you looked at timelines of what was done by the doctors, it was there in black and white their documents that I told them I was not leaving that hospital that day. That was the Thursday. They were in shock when I came. I was not leaving there until I got my husband's records, and if they did not give it to me, I was going to make sure at his funeral on Monday that the country knows that they would not give my husband's records. So get your records, get them fast, and that is your best evidence. And when it comes to expert witness, you can go through the Caribbean and look at expert witnesses who will be prepared to give you if those in Trinidad are not willing to give you that. And thirdly, the minister needs to look at that private hospital legislation to add liability insurance, just like with cars, third-party insurance. And finally, that the whoever is responsible, that you cannot practice as a private doctor unless you are covered by indemnity insurance. And those are the 4 things I want to make sure come out of this, out of my husband's death.
Well, Karen, as we open up the phone lines, and folks, the phone lines are now open. The numbers will be on your screen, and you can call in and join us on the program, comment on anything that we've spoken of this morning or any other situation that you'd like to comment on. What you just mentioned there, that first of all, you would think insurance companies, they themselves have to be insured. You would have thought that
private hospitals have to have liability insurance.
And you would have thought that would have been the case. And considering that private hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago are businesses quite lucrative, if we may say so, and perhaps throughout the world as well, but with our medical system in Trinidad and Tobago, private hospitals are very lucrative businesses. You would think that was something that was already in place.
And I think most of them do, just let me not be unfair to them. I think most of them do, so I don't want to give the impression
but by law.
They have to protect themselves too, but it is not mandatory by the law, and that is what I'm asking.
Yes, and also for private practice, for any doctor of private practice, I agree with you, and I'll be quite honest with you, I was not aware that the law does not provide for such, so I'm glad that you raised those issues this morning, and as you make your way to the Minister of Health, I look forward to his response. But we do have a call on the line with us from Trin-City. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Aaron, you are a true champion. This morning, you are a champion. I read this morning I walked into a shop and I saw the headline, Karen Teixeira, 18 million. I said, wow, Karen win this case. And I just saying this, Karen, that you're a champion. You know why? All that you said is true. I did a surgery in 2017, open heart, triple bypass. I wouldn't call the institution, close to the Oval. And when I did that surgery, after leaving the hospital, I went home and I had a serious problem with inflammation on my chest. I returned to that same institution 2 days after, showing them what is happening. Those people sent me to Mount Hope, went at Mount Hope, and tell me, don't come back here. And I spent $350,000 to do that surgery there. They in turn sent me to Mount Hope. The same doctors who were there, come and see me at Mount Hope. I'm trying to go fast forward. Anyway, they went in my chest again, take out all the staples, and my chest is open now. I have no staples holding my chest since 2017. They kept me there, they do all kind of things. Nothing worked. I checked out and I went to the next institution up on a hill in St. Joseph. There, they swallowed my chest with the information and found out I had MRSA. After finding out about MRSA, they told me that was the deadliest bacteria in the world that you could get MRSA. They don't even know if they could treat it because the antibiotics are working. And so my life has been going downhill because with the antibiotics, I now find out from my internal medicine doctor, it has damaged my kidneys. My kidneys are only working on 15% now. I went to attorneys, Karen, just someone fast forwarding. I went to attorneys here in this country. And when the attorney said, he said, man, you have $1 million case. This case is a thing. And when I told him who was the doctors, he said, that's my brother-in-law. I can't do the case. I went to a big attorney in San Fernando. He says, Mr. Rodriguez, oh my, I call him a name and all. He said, Mr. Rodriguez, the candle is going to cost more than the funeral. Because there are no doctors here in this country will testify against doctors. You had to go and get a Queen's Counsel. You had to pay him £500 an hour to do your case. They had to bring in special, just everything you say, Karen. My hat's off to you. Yes, you're right. If you have money, you could fight them and they wait for you to die. But you still alive and you won. I would have died. I'm still alive, but I don't have the money. So they got away. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the great fight. Thank you for the great fight. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, caller from Trinity.
I just want to be fair to the private hospitals. When a patient becomes a level of critical state, it is the practice to transfer them to a public hospital, because the public hospital has far more facilities to deal with an emergency. So that, in all fairness, that is what they do.
Which I'll be very honest with you,
they don't want to have a death on their thing that 10 people died at their hospital, so people may not want to come. But the fact is, they do. It is the practice to send them to public hospital.
We have another call on the line, but very quickly, Karen, I'm rather surprised at that, because whilst I understand that it is practice, and I've had experience like that previously, you would think again that these private hospitals and private institutions will be fully equipped. Because quite frankly, yes, private hospital fees in Trinidad and Tobago, my oh my. We have a caller on the line with us from Port of Spain. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning to the team, but a special good morning to the warrior, the fighter, the achiever, Mrs. Karen Nunez Teixeira.
Very good.
I think what is happening now, the stars are aligning to illustrate to the population, particularly the voting population within the PNM, what true leadership is all about. You do not, as it were, down tools, throw your hands up in despair and walk away from the major challenges that confront you. There are some within the society who can do that, and they don't come forward to offer themselves for service. Here is a person, I wouldn't say a woman or a lady, here is a person, a patriot, who is confronted by a challenge, which is to say, she is concerned about the well-being of her party, but by extension, her country. And she has come forward to offer herself for service. Think about all that has transpired in the last week or two with respect to her triumphs, and I see them as triumphs. But more than that, I see it as a validation of her ability to take up the battle and run with it. I see it as a validation of her ability not to turn back in the face of the biggest adversity. And so, once again, it may sound as it were repetitious, but I will do it again. I endorse Karen Teixeira Nunez to be the next political leader of the People's National Movement.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much, caller. We have a caller. All right, we had a call on the line with us from Felicity. We lost it, but if you'd like to call back in, we do have some time to take your call this morning. Karen, this entire situation surrounding private hospitals, again, I think, I'm very pleased that from your case and all that you would have learned from your case, and the unfortunate lessons, if I may put it that way, that you're willing to take it to the Minister of Health. Perhaps as you were enlightened and as you have enlightened us this morning, he may not be aware of it, he may not know. And hopefully something is done about it. But in the meantime, we do have a caller on the line with us from Digger Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning.
Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning, Ms. Teixeira.
Morning.
I'm just calling to share with you an early experience. I actually grew up with the Bossy Sports Club, which, as I'm sure you know, was next door to my own sports club. And I think I remember you coming on the sidelines with Russell, because he insisted that we call him Russell as young men. And he would assist some of us in playing the game. Later on, when Bossy crashed, I went across and I played with Marvel under 19s and so on. I had some good experiences. So I want to tell you what a gentleman Russell was. And my experiences with him as a boy was really fantastic. You know, so I know it probably still is, and money cannot compensate. However, I want to wish you all the best. Okay?
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much.
We have another caller from Europe.
Yes. Good morning, caller. Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Good program as usual.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanna thank the lady for fighting that fight and getting through. Because the system in Trinidad, especially in the medical fraternity, it is really horrible. You hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Right, and I want to give an example. For the talk, it was speaking about the private hospital. I have a friend, a very close friend. He passed away now, God rest his soul. A police officer was shot. He went to a garage in Arima to get his car fixed.
I know who you're talking of, caller.
Yeah?
Yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
go on,
and they tried to rob him his chain. A very close friend of mine. They tried to rob him his chain, and the guy, shooting at him. So he kind of put up a resistance now. And when the guy ran off, the police only got off one shot, but there was another guy with a magazine, long magazine pistol, and fire off. My friend picked up 3 shots. Police officer ended up in Mount Hope. Right now I'm talking and I'm a pause raising.
Yeah.
And when I went to see him the first day, tube in his nose, tube in his mouth, tube in his side. I said, oh God, boy, brother. But he couldn't talk. I said, but you're strong, you'll make it. Then I went to Tobago for a week. When I came back down, the tubes out his mouth, out his nose, but they still had the one on the side to draw the blood now in his stomach. And he told me he still have 2 bullets inside him. The doctor said they can't remove the bullet. After he went home, they sent him home after about 4 weeks in the hospital. They sent him home. I visited him home, praying with them. And you know, his first day to the clinic, he spent about a month and something home. Getting very dark. After a month and something home, the first day of his clinic, you know, when he went to clinic that day, he collapsed and that touched me. That happened about 3 years ago. That touched me.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I know the same doctors and them who saying they wouldn't be able to remove the bullet. Had he gone, and I forgot to tell him, go in a private nursing home, brother. When they will discharge you, go St. Augustine or some other nursing home. Because the same doctors, you will see them there.
Yeah.
Pay the money, and they will remove that bullet.
Yeah.
You think? And it hurt me. I went to his funeral, I couldn't go and watch his face. Because a nurse told me it's the bullets that poisoned that guy. And the brother told me also they didn't do a good job on his stomach. When they do the autopsy, if you see the kind of work they did on his stomach, it's only his strength kept him for that month and something alive. God rest his soul. And all know I can't get over it. He was my best friend.
Caller,
I want the point I'm making. I figure I should pass a law that the doctors in the hospital should not be able to go and practice privately.
Yeah.
You understand? Because they're giving you absorbidon fees, and when you go there, the same doctor who tell you they can't do this and they can't do that. Gentlemen, good program.
Thank you, caller.
Listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would comment after we have one final caller for the morning. Good morning, caller.
Morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning. Sorry about that.
Morning.
That's quite okay. Hi, welcome. Morning to the panel, and of course that special lady Karen. I know we are running out of time. So firstly, Karen, I want to wish you all the best on your advent to be the political leader of the PNM, and of course our future Prime Minister. You have my full backing. Secondly, I want to congratulate you for that long fight. Is it 18 years since, Russell passed away? Of course, because of you, I knew Russell personally, and such a fine gentleman, you such a great lady. So I want to congratulate you. You have always stood up for the right thing, and I am backing you all the way. Congrats again, Sharon, and take care. God is good. At least this system, the justice system, especially in England, has shown us the way in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to congratulate you. All the best in your future endeavors, and I back you 110%. Always remain good and be the nice person. Bye, Karen. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, caller.
Can I just say one thing against our judges? at every level they lost. So it wasn't as though the Privy Council overturned the Court of Appeal. The High Court found in my favor, the Court of Appeal found in my favor, and the Privy Council more or less dismissed every single ground that they brought, which I think was quite devastating to them. But not really, maybe they knew it. But I just want to defend, I don't like to give the impression that all is wrong. I mean, the judges here in Trinidad the Privy Council did agree with the decision of the
judges locally.
Of our lower judges, and our courts.
I think just before we conclude the program this morning, and Karen, I want to thank you very much for being with us this morning and for your continued contribution to the program. I also want to thank our callers. The point that the caller from Curate made as it relates to doctors whom act as consultants within the public health system, but then share private practice with a private health institution. I can say that I've been reliably informed on many occasions, not just once, that is the instance. They have doctors who would go to the public health system, and for many reasons, but the story goes, you go to the public health system, you are met with a consultant who tries to deal with your situation and treat you as best as possible. And many times they say they write a referral letter. And that referral letter is to the private institution of practice of which they are a part of. And you go there, you pay exorbitant fees to get the treatment. Now, there are sides to that story, as I mentioned previously, such as the fact that at times, the equipment that is necessary to treat you, the medical equipment that is necessary to treat you, may not be functioning
or available
within the public health system. And therefore, you can only access treatment within the private healthcare system. But just as how lawyers are not allowed to advertise, I see that in a way as a form and as advertisement for private doctors who are able to go to the public health system, write referral letters to their own private institution, and then charge exorbitant fees. Doctors in Trinidad and Tobago, the middle class may be disappearing, some might argue, but doctors are in a class of their own. And quite frankly, many of them have worked hard. But the one thing that I will argue for is that patient care in particular, doctors who genuinely show care towards their patients and genuinely fight to save the patient's life and work with their health, rather than the easiest treatment, which is take a Panadol or take this antibiotics. I think we're losing that in TNT. And I hope that the younger generation of doctors are not so much concerned more with the fact that in 2 years' time, I can drive a Mercedes-Benz, rather than the fact that in 2 years' time, I'm able to save 10 lives. I hope that is being taught within the schools now.
And just to back up your point, I just want to remind people again, economically speaking, and we're not talking about the Ministry of Finance and the Minister, pure economics. You could have good healthcare, you could have affordable or free healthcare, or you could have universally available healthcare. You could get 2 out of the 3. You're not going to get all 3 at the same time. It's just impossible right now with scarcity of resources. So what you said there about machines either being unavailable or broken down or what have you, that's just the reality. We could make the best public healthcare system in the world. It will just cost the country a lot of money, right? Whether or not we want to put that on the citizens, that's a whole other next question. So it's not easy, but what I do think we do need to look at though is the concerns that both Karen and one of our callers brought up with regards to when there's potential malpractice, why is it so hard for anyone to face consequences, to have it looked into, to have these things seen about?
Very quickly, I take a lesson out of the call from Pitty Valley yesterday, and rightfully so. I've had experiences in the public health system as well, and sometimes bad, sometimes good, but not all doctors and not all nurses are the same. There are those that genuinely care and those who will go beyond what is required of them.
A lot of them do, Keita.
And
I know you have a sister that's a doctor.
I have a brother.
And I have a daughter that's a doctor. And I have 3 brothers are doctors.
I don't have any,
and they're all committed.
I don't have any medical family members, but I know of a few good doctors.
Keita?
No, my elder brother, he's a doctor.
Okay, sorry, a sibling. Excuse me.
That's fine.
And I know that they are committed. I know. I speak to them, and can I just say that I always say, when you're choosing a profession, all of my family who became doctors, they just love their profession.
Yeah.
But it's the system.
And that is the most important thing. You love your profession, you love what you do, you love your job, you have a passion for it, you work hard. And when they are on call every other day, believe you me, I know it's that love that sends them out there. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close Talking Point this morning, thank you very much once more to Karen Eunice, to Sheriff, to my host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small, to all our callers. Let me remind you, this is Talking Point, and as we always end it, today is a good day to have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Secretary Girls IC School presents Wonderland, a bazaar with a difference.
Saturday, November 5th, St. John's Ambulance Headquarters, Ryson Road, Port of Spain, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Many exciting stalls and much more. Walk along Adult Street and win many prizes from adult punchboard, hoopla, tin pan alley, and much more. Don't miss the many giveaways and surprises for all kids.